Hello, I'm Michael O'Hagan, and I'm here to tell you that you can learn how to paint. I'm not kidding. If I can learn how to paint, so can you. I decided to do this project because a good friend of mine who passed away years ago, John, he's there in the background with the glasses on. I'm in the foreground. We're probably about 9 or 10 in this picture. He was an absolutely amazing artist, and I kind of wanted to see if I could be as good of an artist as he could. So I got some paper, I got some paint, and I created this mess. It was supposed to be a desert scene with, the pinkish kind of sun in the sky, and I don't even know. But needless to say, it was pretty bad. So I said to myself that I need to get some instruction from somewhere. So one of the best free places to get instruction anywhere right now is YouTube. So I went onto YouTube and I started typing in how to paint, and somebody who I used to watch on TV as a child popped up a lot, and that's Bob Ross. There he is, probably making one of his happy little trees or bushes or a happy little lake or something right there. But I watched one of his videos and followed his instructions step by step to create a nighttime wintry scene. And just like building a house, with Bob, he told us that we have to start with, the foundation in the background, and then you build up towards you in the painting. So I started with the foundation of mountains in the background with clouds in the sky, and you can see that the clouds were painted first, and then the mountains are in front of that. And so then you just build your scene out after creating that solid foundation. In this painting, I learned a couple of things. I learned about perspective. I learned about paying attention to the horizon. As you can see, the mountains start kind of halfway down the painting and go up and leave probably about, I don't know, a quarter of the painting at the top just for clouds. And so I created my horizon with some trees and added a cabin and some snow, but unfortunately, I covered up my mountains with most of the trees and things like that. Um, so this is the second painting I did. The first painting with any sort of like instruction, where I watched the video of Bob Ross making this painting probably 17 times. My son was excited about watching it with me the first 4 times. Then he goes, "Oh no, we're watching Bob Ross again." Um, so I learned with this painting perspective. I learned to pay attention to your horizon. Um, I stayed up close to this painting while I was making it, and I learned that you should probably step back a little bit and look at what it is the painting looks like and where you want to put things. My son wanted to paint along with me, so here he is making his tree um, with his painting. I also learned about cleaning your paintbrushes. I'd never ever painted with oil before. The only type of painting I'd ever done in life is kind of like with the paint that my son has, which is washable. You put it under water and it washes right out. So I had no idea that that didn't work with oil-based paints. So I took all my paintbrushes and took them to the kitchen sink, tried to clean them out, and I created a mess in the kitchen sink, which I'm still cleaning up today. So I needed to figure out how to clean um, oil-based paint out of paintbrushes. So I once again turned to the internet, and Google had this image of somebody cleaning their paintbrush out with mineral spirits. And this image is a way to clean your brush as well with a mesh grate at the bottom of the brush. You can just kind of brush along and help get the little itty bits of oil paint out. I also found this video right here from Ask Woodman. And one thing I noticed watching this video, here's a screen grab from the video and here's another one, is that he's wearing very thick green, almost like kitchen gloves. And I probably should have watched this video before getting mineral spirits and trying to clean the brush with them like I would any other brush using my bare hands. My hands felt very raw. They were turning red and it felt like I had a sunburn on my hand from all the chemicals that I was using. So after that, I got some gloves and I used that. I also spilled some mineral spirits on the ground in my garage, and I needed to know how to clean those up. So I went to the internet, and a couple sources, including Ask Woodman, said that you should spread kitty litter all over the ground in on mineral spirits, wait for it to dry completely, and then you can safely scoop it up, put it in a plastic bag, and throw it in the trash. Once it's dry completely, when it's still wet, you can't do that because there's fumes and it's still flammable. But once it's dried, the flammable component is apparently gone. It's evaporated. So I put kitty litter down, I let it dry for about a day, and then I scooped it up and I threw it out. For my next painting, I wanted to do something that I could give to my parents. My mom likes a lot of color on her wall, so I was like, okay, I'm going to do a colorful waterfall type scene. So once again, I Googled a Bob Ross video, and I painted along with Bob Ross to create a waterfall. And again, starting with the background, you've got these trees in the background. I've got my clouds, my sky, and then on the bottom is where the water is. But I did not intend for this pinkish color to show up on the screen. It just happened. And as Bob Ross calls it, it's just a happy accident. The pink invoked a huge, strong response in my brain, in my memory of cherry trees. I would go to Washington, D.C. In the spring when we lived in North Carolina, and we would go and watch the cherry trees bloom. And here's some pictures of cherry trees. You see that pink color and then the brown tree trunks. And so you can see back in this one, there's the brown tree trunks and the pink color. And this made me start thinking of my great aunt, who was a teacher during World War II at the Japanese Relocation Center at Manzanar. She went there, she volunteered there. She is on the left, right next to where her barrack was that she lived at while teaching at Manzanar. And on the right are two pictures that she took while there. Both of them are easily Googleable. They're rather famous pictures. The one on the bottom was one of the first times her students were able to say the Pledge of Allegiance to an actual flag while at Manzanar. They usually had to say it to an empty corner because when she first got her school, all she had was 4 walls. They hadn't actually finished the roof yet. That happened about a week after school started, but she didn't have anything to say the Pledge of Allegiance to. But she did not like what was happening to the Japanese people. She had Japanese friends. She thought it was wrong, and until her final days, she maintained that it was wrong, and it was one of the worst things that the country has done in recent times. So she volunteered there to try and she wanted to be, a sense of normalcy for the kids. So she would do things like, check out the camp car, stick some kids in the trunk, drive away from the camp, and once none of the guards could see them, get them out of the trunk, put them in the back seat, and take them to a local town and get some ice cream. I asked her when she was telling me the story, weren't you afraid you were going to get into trouble? And she said no. And I looked at her funny. I said, why? She said, because as long as you act like you're supposed to be doing something, most of the time people don't bother you or question you. She said they knew I was a teacher at the camp. I had an official camp vehicle, and I had some of my students. To anybody who was just passing by, it looked like I had permission to do everything. I said, well, okay, that makes sense. But after the war ended and she left Manzanar, she stayed working for the government, and she went to Austria to set up a school for the dependents of the U.S. occupational forces that are there. And she lived in Salzburg, Austria for a number of years and taught there. And then she got sent to teach at a school in Heidelberg and really all over Europe. And she got sent to Japan for a few years to teach over there because of her experience at Manzanar. And her story is it's incredible. And as I always think I know her entire story, but then I start researching more, which I did with this project, and I learn more and more. She is very much an enigmatic figure to our family because there's no way we're ever really probably going to know everything that she did and accomplished. She's also the reason I went into teaching. She has been a huge inspiration for me in education. But anyway, going back to the final copy of the painting, I wound up with this bit of a mess. I need to learn and focus on my straight lines because you can see the waterfall. It doesn't look right because on the left where the river is coming into the waterfall, the grade should have gone up as opposed to down. That would have been a little more realistic. here it just looks kind of weird. I also need to pay attention to the trees on either side of color. I think I over blended the background color and the foreground color so it doesn't have that pop of, highlights on the leaves and things like it's supposed to. So I learned a couple things of this painting. It's a learning process, so I'm happy with it. The next painting I did was of a wintry scene, and I wanted to do something inspired by my great aunt's experience in Austria, so I started looking at images of the Austrian Alps. Here we go, some pictures of Austrian Alps, and I have, of course, The Sound of Music, which took place in Salzburg, Austria. And the Van Trapp family home is where one of the schools that the US government set up. And in fact, my great aunt ran that school. She was there on a trip to visit the school and come up with some suggestions. And while she was there, the principal of the school had a heart attack and passed away. So they made her the new principal of the school, which she stayed for 1 year, decided that she did not like administration and went back into the classroom the next year. But you can see the mountains. I mean, they're very tall. They're majestic. They're very powerful mountains. That's what I wanted to capture, and I think I did in this picture. I've got very tall mountains. I've got a frozen lake. I've got the trees. This could be in Austria. It looks very, very similar to a lot of pictures that I saw. Here is the final painting I did. What I wanted to do is see how much I've learned and see if my technique is improved visually from the second painting. So I redid that one. And I paid attention to the horizon. So you can see the horizon is a lot lower so you can see the mountains. I put the building on the other side and I wanted to make it a holiday Christmas-like painting. So if you look closely at the building, I put Christmas lights all over it. When I showed this to my brother-in-law, he said, "Oh, this is very nice. A picture of a kind of a rural church out in the middle of the woods, and they've got Christmas lights on. Where is the electricity coming from?" And so me being the artist of the picture, Bob Ross says, I get to tell the story of the picture. So I told him that if you look to the very right of the building, there's a shadowy area. That's where the power generator is. So this is my final painting that I've done for this project, although it's not going to be the final painting that I do. I'm actually enjoying painting. It's something I think I'm going to stick with. So here are all 5 of the paintings that I did. On the top left is the first mess before I had any formalized instruction. And if you look at the painting in the top middle and the painting on the bottom right, they're the same scene, the same inspiration, the same idea. But if you look carefully, you can definitely see improvement. You see where I've learned in these 5 weeks of how to look at a horizon, how to not overblend if you look at the clouds, how to really layer on the trees and give them highlights of snow, how to if you look at the building, how to make it look like the front of the roof's not caving in. So I think I have improved during the course of this project, and if really, again, if I can learn how to paint, anybody can. So I'd like to thank you for listening to my talk, and if you have any questions, my contact information is at the beginning of this video, and I hope you all have a super fantastic day. Thank you.